Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix and this is Bullet Heaven 2. It released on December 7th, 2015 and it is $11.99, developed and published by Matt Rozak. It is a bullet hell game of a different variety, but before I begin, I want to make sure you guys know that this key was obtained from the developer via keymailer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion in the end, but you guys should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Now, this is based off the Epic Battle Fantasy series, which I have not played. There are characters in the game that, interact and obviously have their personalities. I don't know if it stays true to the franchise. I'm going to assume it does, but you don't need that backstory to sort of enjoy this game here. You're here for the gameplay more than anything else. Now, the game is obviously playing off the bullet hell idea and its title of Bullet Heaven, and the thing is that it's actually smartly done. The thing is that this is a bullet hell game, but not really in some senses. It's a little bit different from what you would expect from the genre, and honestly, I sort of appreciated that. This is a bullet hell that's a little bit different from everybody else, and I think I want to show you guys exactly what I mean by that going along. Now, this is the normal mode. This is the sort of easiest mode that you have, and in this fight, I don't take a single hit. Now, the way it works is that you have 10 waves that you go through and 3 optional waves. Basically, there'll be bonus waves after you get through the original 10. Now, each wave, if you take a hit, you're going to lose some health, and you have 3 bombs that will help you. If you're about to get hit, if you use a bomb, you'll get that invulnerability and therefore be able to sort of negate the damage. Now, if you're able to get through a wave perfectly, you get that diamond, and that diamond is a multiplier. The more diamonds you have, the higher your score is, and this is a score-based game. You're given a rank, as you see in the top right corner of the screen, and there are multiple ways to really increase your rank in a variety of different ways, whether it be via your gameplay or via modifiers, which I will get to later on. Now, you see I'm not really having problems here, and remember that I said this is the normal difficulty. The difference between the difficulties, it has to do with the number of bullets on screen. Here it's 25%. In the hard mode, it's 50% bullets, and in heavenly, it's 100% bullets. So there is a huge difference between the modes. Now, speed-wise, enemy-wise, it's the same waves, but the thing is that the number of bullets obviously changes things, and you have to use your sort of slow motion in terms of the right trigger if you're using controller to navigate your way through it, very similar to a bullet hell. Now, in terms of the normal mode, it's rather easy in my opinion, but I am a sort of veteran of the genre. I played Mushi Hime-sama the other day, I remember, for the channel. That was a little bit harder than this game, even at its heavenly mode. However, it does give a challenge at the hard and heavenly modes later on, as you will see in this video. Looking at the art style for a second, I like the art style. It has sort of a chibi feel to it almost, even though, like the character on the right there, the character I'm playing as, doesn't necessarily have a chibi feel. It's sort of the round sort of chins and sort of the roundness of some of the eyes in terms of like how large they are on the body. It feels a little bit Japanese influence, but really it feels like its own style, and it works rather well. Enemies are easy to see within the environment, and obviously for a bullet hell game, that makes a huge difference. Now, as I mentioned, there are 10 waves with 3 bonus waves, so after I kill these last guys, my level is complete, and you are judged based on how well you did in the level. It takes into a variety of factors into account for your ultimate score, as you see in the top left corner at this point. And obviously, you get your little story elements like, who gave you permission to breathe? Poor cat. So, foes defeated, coins grabbed, time taken, grazed meaning how many bullets I came very close to touching at that point, and the diamonds, as I mentioned, which really caused the multiplier. Now, the story elements of the game and the writing doesn't necessarily do the greatest of jobs, but I did appreciate it for things like this, the whole ableist language and then more sensitive. Obviously, they're making fun of PC culture. It doesn't have the greatest of writing, but it knows that. It even says that within the store page where it says it's juvenile. Now, I've moved up to the hard difficulty at this point, and the hard difficulty obviously is a little bit harder, but reasonably harder. At the hard difficulty, I still had trouble once in a while and got hit. Yeah, I got a perfect in that portion, but you do have a lot more to deal with, and some levels in particular give you a real hard problems because of the color schemes. Now, here, the green against green actually works, but one of the things that I didn't like about the game is the costumes sort of ruining some of the bullet hell elements of the game. Some costumes that you could wear for your character actually make it hard to see a bullet around them. As you see in the center of my character there is a circle. That's the circle I have to protect. It's a very similar mechanic that you see, well, it's pretty much the same mechanic that you see in other Japanese bullet hell games. And this is no exception. That gets hit, you're gonna take damage. As you saw, you got a bomb there. You get 3 bombs per level, and that is your sort of saving grace, but it's also able to do a significant amount of damage, but it clears bullets on the screen if you don't have a certain handicap enabled. I'll get to that later, as I said. Now, when I mentioned that Bullet Heaven 2 was a little bit different from other games in the genre, I definitely meant it. And part of that reason is the charge meters that you see on the left and right of my character here. Now, the left and right are the main and sub weapons, and the main weapon does things a little bit differently. So you see that I can fire the regular swords, the ones with the actual yellow hilt at this point. But if I let it charge, it will get that multiple sword effect. Now, the sub weapon's a little bit more straightforward from what I've seen, but depending on whose weapon and what they're using, there's a different effect when it's charged. Whether it be it moves a little bit more or it has a bit more spread, and the character's strengths definitely come into play at that point, depending on what weapon you're using. I like this. Now, I am a fan of power-ups, I am a fan of more traditional weapons systems, but this actually worked rather well for me. I liked the fact that I couldn't just keep on firing over and over and over again without any punishment. Now, I'm going to move on to Nightmare Mode, which is all the bullets on the screen. And remember, these are the first 3 levels I'm showing you at this point. I have gotten up to level 5, and each level has 5 different stages, plus 2 bonus stages with bosses in question. Now, as you see here, the bullets, yeah, they bring the challenge now. And you got to be very careful about where you're moving, and the slow movement in particular is going to make a huge difference. Now, control-wise, all 3 control schemes work to an extent. Now, obviously, I prefer the controller scheme only because I sort of grew up with the controller. It makes a lot more sense for me, but the keyboard controls work perfectly fine, even though you don't have bindable keys, which I would have appreciated, but hey, at least you have the keyboard controls that work here. Now, you also have mouse controls, and anybody who has seen me play Shmup Love Boom realize that I'm not going to like the mouse controls. Here, however, at least there's it's a little bit more responsive than those, but it's inferior compared to the other 2 in question. Now, in terms of gameplay, again, I've said a little bit about how Epic Battle Fantasy is different. It does definitely reward you for perfection. For example, you saw that I took a hit earlier on there, and that made me lose health. Well, the thing is that I can regain that health in only really one way, and that's getting through another wave without taking damage, or I think in particular not taking damage in some other criteria. You saw there I got the health. Now that replaces a diamond, which means that, okay, I'm not going to get as big of a multiplier, but on the flip side, I've got the health in order to spend it if case I run into a problem. The challenge in Epic Battle Fantasy is good. And in particular, it does bring the challenge in terms of enemy variety and bullet variety. Now, for example, you'll have this octopus enemy here that will throw these sort of waves at you, including the spiral wave and these line waves. The combination obviously makes you have to look at every bullet that's coming at you, and sometimes it's not necessarily the bullet itself that at first poses the biggest problem. You'll have some bullets that actually stay there for a second, then will be thrown at you, which does do a good job of adding to the variety in question. In terms of overall variety, the game does a good job in terms of characters, weapons, sub-weapons, in terms of the options that you can purchase. As you earn coins in the game, you can use that to buy new characters, new costumes for those characters that alter their attributes slightly, but not a lot. Sub-weapons, which can range from, a tiny bit different to a little bit more close quarters, things like that. Now, the characters all play relatively the same, but once you get down to the details of really getting to the heavenly portion of the game, those slight differences will make a huge difference, like Lance, who's a little bit more slow, but is also able to do a bit more damage to a character right up front. Now, I appreciate the different weapons and costumes, although I've seen games with better options there, but the bigger thing here is the cheats and handicaps. The cheats obviously make the game easier for you, but it drops your score. Likewise, handicaps makes the game harder for you, but ups your score. I like this system. I like the fact that I can purchase a cheat if I'm really having trouble with a level, and yes, I'm going to take a score hit, but I can move on, and it's going to help me reasonably at that point. Likewise, if I'm confident in my gameplay, I can turn on a bunch of handicaps to make it a little bit more difficult. I like the system. I want to see more games use this type of system. Now, I've been pretty positive with Bullet Heaven 2, and for good reason. I feel like it is a good change-up of the genre. With that said, it does have some little problems here and there. For example, you see the arrows on the bottom of the screen. Now, those are used to indicate when enemies are coming towards you, and you can still pay attention to your cat trying to dodge the bullets that are being thrown at you right in front of you. Now, that's great that it gives you that information. I actually like that feature. At first, I was like, why is it down there? Why is it not up there? Then I realized, oh, that's what it's there for. With that said, why is it not a different color? The sort of bland color that it gives at this point doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because it's supposed to be drawing your attention, like, hey, look at these enemies, look at, what's coming down screen. Instead, what it does is that it barely registers at times, and while yes, the information's there to help you, it doesn't draw attention to it, and I think it's one of those things that it should draw attention to, and a better choice like maybe a bright pink or a bright green like those bullets there. Yes, I know you'd have to be very specific about what colors you were using in the background, would make more sense at this point. The game's difficulty can be pretty easy even at the nightmare mode too. Yeah, there's a lot of bullets on screen here, for example, but one of the things is that with the bomb system, remember, there are always 10 waves, and knowing that, you can really sort of plan out when you need to use your bombs to get another health pack, for example. I like the health system, and I don't like it, because it can sort of get you out of trouble very easily, knowing that you can get through a stage getting a sort of guaranteed health. But with that said, it is the score system that really matters in the end for really improving with the diamond system with the multiplier, so I can't necessarily hold it back too much because of that. The music is appropriate for the genre, as you've heard throughout this video. It's definitely per stage and how it works out. You do get actually a good variety in terms of more high pace and a little bit slower at times, but honestly, it does the job there. Sound design is a little bit weird though. Now, when you hit certain enemies, it makes sense in terms of the sound effects, but sometimes they don't have the necessarily effect to say, oh yeah, you killed that guy. Like here, okay, it makes somewhat sense in terms of the sort of, I don't want to say crystal sort of shattering kind of sound, but it makes a tiny bit of sense, but it doesn't have that impact like that, oh yeah, you killed that guy. And there are certain enemies where you almost get like, I don't want to say a Wilhelm scream, but you get sort of a scream that will make you go, oh, I almost feel like I shouldn't have hit that enemy because it did that sort of scream that's supposed to make me feel for it. So the sound design, I think, is probably the weakest part of this game. Yeah, the music's all right, but the sound design, especially in a shooter like this, I feel like there has been games that have done a lot better. The way I'm going to end this video is to use an analogy of what I think Bullet Heaven 2 is in terms of a purchasable decision for the gaming community. When you go to a restaurant and you buy a hamburger, you expect certain elements of the hamburger. You expect it to be cooked well, you expect the bun to be sort of, soft, but not too horribly soft in some cases. And if you buy a hamburger over and over again, maybe every week, yeah, you like it, but sooner or later it's going to lose its sort of, touch, and it's going to lose its flavor. Bullet Heaven 2 is going there and then getting something a little bit different on the burger, like let's say a blue cheeseburger. Now, I'm not a fan of blue cheese, and there will be people who aren't a fan of the changes in the genre that this game brought. But for certain people who are looking to refresh their palate, I think Bullet Heaven 2 does the job in that. There's enough there that's similar that will make you remind you of the taste, but it does something a little bit different that will make you want to, look at it a little bit differently. Like, oh, hey, this is a little bit different. I may not necessarily want to play this all the time, but I like the changes that were made here, and it's a good difference within the genre. All right, this is Dragnix signing out. I hope you got an idea of what Bullet Heaven 2 has to offer. Again, I will leave my Steam review in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe. I am trying to make a career of this, so any kind of, likes, shares, things like that always helps. And I will see you guys next week with a lot of top 10 videos and end of the year videos, that's for sure. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, you can hit that subscribe button in the middle of the screen right there. In the top left and top right is the last video I did and a related video to this one. I do have a Twitter handle in the bottom left, and in the bottom right I have a Facebook group. You can click on the Google Plus icon to get more content and subscribe via Google Plus. And, as always, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.